The moment her lips touched the rim of that margarita glass, I knew. Not because of how she held it. Careless, like the drink wasn't even hers. Not because of the crooked smile she gave me from across the table, but because the lime wedge was already bitten. She hadn't taken a sip yet. Someone else had. She laughed at something I hadn't said. Music pounded behind us. Cheap pop with too much bass, while her shoulders moved like she was still in some imaginary rhythm from the dance floor. I watched her wipe the corner of her mouth with the back of her hand, smearing a lipstick I hadn't seen her wear in 6 years. "You're being weird," she said, and tried to kiss me. And that's when I said it. "I'd kiss you, but I don't want to taste your boyfriend." Her breath caught. Just a twitch in the throat. But I saw it. I heard it. She set the glass down too quickly, and it tipped slightly, tequila spilling out over the tablecloth. Her hand shot out to fix it, but not before she glanced sideways at the guy in the brown blazer 2 tables over. The one pretending to check his phone with one hand, while gripping the limeless cocktail with the other. I should have left right then. Instead, I dabbed the spill with a napkin. Calm, robotic, hollowed out like a man already divorced in spirit but not in paperwork. "What is that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice half laughing, half terrified. But I didn't answer. I just looked at the glass again. A tiny smear of his fingerprint overlapped hers on the rim. Ainsley didn't speak for almost a full minute. She just stared at me like I was a stranger who'd walked into the wrong house. Her pupils were locked onto mine, but everything else about her, the twitch in her fingers, the way she swallowed hard like she was chasing a dry pill, screamed guilt. Then, just like that, she blinked out of her trance and tried to smile. It was the kind of smile you see on people who are clearly about to lie but are praying the first line works. "That's not funny, Darwin." Like, what the hell kind of joke is that? I didn't laugh. She sat down across from me and reached for the same margarita glass. She didn't drink it, just stared at it like it might say something first. The tension sat between us like fog, thick and still and loud. "It's not a joke," I said, keeping my voice low, even careful. "But go ahead. Make something up. I'll wait." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me." I said, "I'll wait. Tell me who he is. The guy who bit the lime wedge before you did." She froze again, just like before, like the scene was repeating itself in a glitching loop. And that's when I realized something strange. Not once did she deny the existence of a he. She was reacting to my details, not the core accusation. "I'm not doing this here," she said, standing abruptly and grabbing her purse. "You've had too much to drink." I hadn't touched my drink. I followed her out into the cool night air, not because I wanted to escalate it, but because I needed to watch her walk. You can tell everything by the way someone walks when they're trying to hide something. She walked fast, almost too fast for those heels. And when we got to the car, she climbed in and slammed the door without a word. I sat there in the driver's seat, staring at the dashboard while her reflection blinked at me through the window. "I didn't bite the lime," she mumbled after a few minutes. "Maybe the bartender did, or I don't know. Darwin, why are you acting like this?" "Because the bartender doesn't wear sandalwood cologne," I wanted to say. "Because the guy 2 tables overmatched the scent on your neck. Because for the last 4 months, I've been walking around feeling like a ghost in my own home." But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I told her we'd talk in the morning. She didn't respond. That night, I lay awake while she showered, again with the door locked. It wasn't always like that. She used to play music while she got ready for bed. Now, just silence and the occasional click of her phone camera, like she was still sending someone updates about where she was. When she finally came to bed, she smelled like mint and guilt. I pretended to sleep. She didn't touch me. She hasn't in weeks. This morning, I woke up alone. Her side of the bed was cold. There was a note on the kitchen counter. "Left early. Yoga at 7. Don't wait for me for dinner." But her yoga mat was still by the door. So now I'm here, sitting in my car outside the boutique gym she says she goes to. I've been here for 30 minutes. No sign of her. But I have a thermos of coffee in time. And for the first time in months, I'm not scared of what I might find. I'm ready for it. I don't know what I expected when I parked across from the gym, but it definitely wasn't this. Sitting in my truck with the engine off, coffee gone cold, and my eyes darting toward every pedestrian like some washed-up detective in a cable drama. For a while, I questioned whether I was losing it, if I was just conjuring paranoia out of thin air because our marriage had hit a dull patch. But then I saw her. Not Ainsley. Her friend. Or rather, The woman she claimed was her workout accountability partner every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. sharp. A woman named Maribel, who I'd met exactly once during a charity walk last summer. We made small talk about granola bars. She seemed nice, normal, and she walked into the gym this morning alone. I recognized her by the neon green sneakers. Ugly as sin, but hard to miss. Ainsley said they always matched when they trained. For motivation, she once laughed. Or shame, if one of us skips. But there was only one pair of green sneakers walking through that front door today. So where was Ainsley? I waited another 20 minutes, just to be sure. I even circled the building once to check the back. Nothing. No Ainsley. No matching car. No texts. Eventually, I drove off, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. And somewhere between the gym and our driveway, something shifted in me, a quiet decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wasn't going to yell, accuse, or demand anything. I was going to gather facts. Information. The kind of evidence you can lay down flat and walk away from. No drama. No begging. Just truth. I started with her laptop. She's always been careful with her phone. Passwords changed regularly, Face ID disabled, notifications silenced. But her MacBook? That was usually out in the open, and it synced with her iCloud when she wasn't paying attention. So when she left for an impromptu client lunch this afternoon, after getting home late, not showering, and somehow smelling like a different detergent than ours, I saw my window. I didn't break anything, didn't hack or dig deep. All I did was open the browser and check her tabs. There were two windows open. One was a work spreadsheet, predictable, boring, the usual client jargon. But the other had an open tab titled Weekend Getaway Cabins, Adults Only. I clicked it. There were multiple listings, all located near a lake 2 hours north of us. Cozy cabins, with fireplaces, hot tubs, romantic getaways. The reservation tab had her email auto-filled. My stomach twisted. Then I made the mistake of checking her calendar. She'd marked this coming Saturday with a single line, wellness retreat, no service. No time, no details, just that. A neat little excuse for being unreachable. The kind of line you tell your partner when you want the freedom to disappear for 48 hours and come back with stories you've already rehearsed. I closed the laptop and walked away. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't copy anything. But the details are burned into my brain like scars. Cabin 7B. Check-in time, 3 p.m. No pets. Perfect for couples looking to reconnect. When she came home later, I pretended not to notice the way she hummed while cooking, like guilt didn't exist. She made pasta. Used basil. She never uses basil unless she's celebrating something. And tonight, as I write this from the garage under the dim workbench light, I hear her upstairs laughing on the phone with someone she called Mina. I don't know Amina. She's never mentioned one. But she says the name over and over, louder than she needs to, like she wants to be heard. Like she knows I'm listening. I don't know how much longer I can play dumb. But I will, at least until Saturday. Because I have a plan now. Saturday arrived like a storm you can smell before it breaks. I hadn't slept much the night before. My chest buzzed with that jittery mix of dread and caffeine that makes your hands shake even when you're sitting still. Ainsley packed a small overnight bag, black leather, the one I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary, and she did it right in front of me without a flicker of shame. She tossed in jeans, a sweater, toiletries, her charger, and even slipped in a book she'd claimed to hate last month. The entire time, she hummed under her breath. It wasn't a tune I recognized. It sounded too light, too careless, and it set my teeth on edge. I asked her, just once, where this wellness retreat was being held. She said it was up north with some colleagues, and they'd all be off the grid. I didn't press further, because pressing would have given away what I already knew. I just smiled, kissed her on the forehead, and told her to drive safe. My heart was pounding so hard I was afraid she'd feel it against her skin. She didn't even look at me when she walked out the door. I waited 15 minutes before following. Enough time for her to think I'd settled back into the couch with a game or a nap. I'd filled the truck the night before, packed a thermos, and brought the cheap pair of binoculars I use when hunting season comes around. I told myself this wasn't stalking. This was survival. A man deserves to know what's being done to him in the shadows. She took the interstate north, just like the reservation had said. I followed 2 cars back, switching lanes every so often so she wouldn't catch the shape of my truck in her mirrors. The drive stretched on for 2 hours through thinning suburbs, rolling farmland, and finally, the narrow forest road that wrapped around Lake Mariner. The kind of road couples use when they want to disappear into something cozy and private, where the trees swallow the sky and the air tastes like pine needles. And there it was, the cabin, number 7B, exactly as it had been written on her screen. Small but pristine, the kind of place rental websites use in glossy ads with slogans like reconnect in nature or find your escape. My wife parked out front and sat in the car for almost a full minute, hands gripping the wheel, like she was gathering her nerves. Then she opened the door, and she wasn't alone anymore. A second car pulled up moments later. A dark blue sedan, clean, expensive-looking, the kind that hums when it drives instead of rattling like mine. The man who stepped out of it was the same man I'd seen in her office reflection that day, tall, smug, with the posture of someone who thinks the world bends slightly in his direction. He carried no bag. He didn't need one. Everything he wanted was already waiting for him in cabin 7B. I gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought the leather might rip. My breath fogged the windshield as I watched Ainsley step out of her car, purse slung casually over her shoulder, and smile at him in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. It wasn't polite. It wasn't friendly. It was soft. The kind of smile you give someone who's already touched every part of you. They didn't kiss right there in the driveway. Maybe they thought it was too exposed, but their bodies leaned toward each other in that magnetic way people can't fake. He touched her hand, briefly, before they walked side by side to the front porch. She unlocked the door. He went in first. She followed. The door closed. I sat there in my truck long after the engines cooled and the birds went quiet. My chest was hollow. My head buzzed with 100 thoughts at once, none of them useful. I wanted to scream, to break down the door, to drag her out and demand she look me in the eye. But all I did was sit there, watching, knowing that a line had been crossed in real time. Every excuse she had ever fed me, the yoga, the work dinners, the endless, late nights, clicked into place like cruel puzzle pieces. And for the first time, I realized the joke wasn't that I suspected her. The joke was that she thought I'd never gather the nerve to find out. I stayed parked across from that cabin until night fell, headlights off, fingers shaking. And when I finally saw the flicker of their silhouettes in the warm glow of the living room window, I understood something that chilled me deeper than any lie she could have told. This wasn't new. This was routine. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in the truck with the seat reclined just far enough to keep from being obvious, and I stared at that cabin like it was some kind of stage performance where I was the only member of the audience. Every sound seemed amplified. The crunch of gravel when a raccoon scurried across the lot, the sharp snap of branches in the forest, the occasional rush of wind that sent the lake rippling like black glass. But what really kept me awake was the warm flicker of light pouring through the curtains of cabin 7B. Sometimes it dimmed, sometimes it brightened, but it never went out. It was the kind of light that doesn't belong to strangers. It was the kind of light that whispers of comfort, of routine, of two people who already know each other too well. I told myself 1,000 times that I was insane for being here, that I could have turned the truck around the moment she disappeared inside, that a stronger man, a man with dignity, would have left her to her lies and started over somewhere else. But I couldn't move. I needed to see. Because if I left, if I drove home and pretended I didn't know what was happening, it would eat me alive in slow motion. I'd always wonder. I'd always second-guess myself. And I couldn't live like that anymore. Sometime after midnight, the cabin door creaked open. My heart jumped into my throat. The man stepped outside carrying a lantern, an actual lantern, not a flashlight. He placed it on the porch table and lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his sharp features. He exhaled slow, deliberate, like he had no worries in the world. And then, without hesitation, Ainsley followed him out, barefoot, hair loose, wrapped in a blanket that I recognized instantly. It was our blanket. The faded blue one we kept folded on the couch, the one we'd used for movie nights. She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder like she'd been doing it for years. I gripped the binoculars so hard the plastic creaked. My pulse roared in my ears. I wanted to scream, to throw the truck into drive and crash straight into that smug blue sedan parked in the gravel. But I didn't. I forced myself to watch as she laughed, a soft, quiet laugh that floated across the still night air. The same laugh she used to give me when I whispered something stupid to her in bed. And when he leaned down and kissed the top of her head, she didn't flinch, didn't push him away, didn't act guilty. She melted into him. That was the moment I realized this wasn't some reckless fling. This wasn't the first time or the second. This was something older, deeper, and infinitely more dangerous. She wasn't testing boundaries. She wasn't experimenting. She was living a second life right in front of me, and I was the outsider she tolerated when she needed stability. I sat there until the lantern went out and the door shut again. My hands were trembling when I scribbled notes in the small pad I kept in the glove compartment. Times, details, even the angle of his posture when he touched her. I don't know why I wrote it down. Maybe because having it on paper made it real, like evidence in a trial. Maybe because one day, when she tried to look me in the eye and deny it, I wanted to be able to slide the notebook across the table and watch her face fall apart. By dawn, the birds started up, shrill and relentless, pulling me out of the trance I'd been in. The cabin windows were dark again. No sign of them. No movement. Just silence and the steady hum of the lake behind the trees. I thought about driving away, but the thought of her slipping back into our home tomorrow, pretending none of this had happened, made me feel physically sick. I couldn't just let her rewrite the story. Not this time. So I made a decision. I was going to follow this through to the very end. Not just tonight. Not just this weekend. I was going to gather every lie, every shadow, every trace of the life she thought she could keep hidden. And when I finally confronted her, I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to tell her, calmly, exactly what I knew. And then I'd walk away. But first, I needed to know who he was. The man in the brown blazer. The man who smoked by lantern light. The man who held my wife like she was his. And I had a feeling that answer was going to hurt worse than anything I'd seen so far. I didn't follow them home. When Ainsley left the cabin the next morning, wearing the same jeans and a different smile, I let her go. I didn't need to trail her again. I knew the lies she'd spin before she even reached the front door. Yoga retreat, no cell signal, group meditation, slept like a rock, missed me terribly, felt so recharged. She was good at it now, her storytelling. Polished, seamless, like she'd practiced on the way back. I waited until both their cars were gone before I approached the cabin on foot. I didn't go inside. I'm not stupid. I didn't want to risk breaking the law. But I circled the perimeter, taking photos with my phone of the license plate on his sedan, the Airbnb name, and listing number stenciled beside the door, even a shot of 2 coffee mugs left lazily on the porch railing, lipstick on one, a fingerprint smudge on the other. I felt like a detective, or worse, a desperate man pretending to be one. But I kept telling myself this wasn't about catching her anymore. This was about preparing myself for what came next. It took me until Monday morning to track him down. The license plate was the first breadcrumb. A friend of mine, Gabe, used to work in repossession before he got into car security systems. And let's just say he still had access to certain databases he wasn't supposed to. One text later and I had a name. Elias Varnell, 38, lives in Maple Hollow, works in corporate development for some mid-sized consulting firm. I sat with the name for a long time, just stared at it on the screen. It didn't mean anything to me at first, not until I pulled up his LinkedIn, and there it was. A face I knew, but didn't want to recognize. Elias wasn't just a stranger. He was someone I'd met before. Twice, actually. The first time had been almost 2 years ago, at a company holiday party Ainsley dragged me to. I remember standing awkwardly near the bar, holding a warm cocktail, while she worked the room. She introduced me to him briefly. Eli, she called him, from Strategy. He wore that same smug half-smile back then too, the kind that looks like he's holding in a joke about you. I didn't like him even then, but I chalked it up to corporate posturing. The second time had been far more personal. 6 months ago, I came home early from a job to find Ainsley on a Zoom call in the living room, laughing way too hard. I stood in the hallway listening, invisible. She was teasing someone on the other end about being too smooth for his own good. I peeked around the corner just in time to catch a brief flash of a man's blurred-out image before she minimized the screen and said, "Oh, hey babe, just work stuff." That was him. Same jawline, same voice. Elias Varnell. Suddenly, it all clicked. The networking events, the yoga retreats, the late-night client calls that ran over. He wasn't just some random affair. He'd been circling her life like a vulture for years. He was embedded, trusted, camouflaged behind work and pretense. And now, I couldn't stop the cascade of memories that flooded in. The moments I thought were awkward timing or bad moods, all reinterpreted through a lens of betrayal. The worst part? There was one more layer to the knife twist. Elias was married. I found his wife's profile. Ray Varnell, a children's speech therapist with a warm smile and a Pinterest full of birthday cake recipes and holiday crafts. They had a daughter. 6, maybe 7. I scrolled through photos of beach trips, Halloween costumes, awkward selfies at carnivals. And just like that, I realized I wasn't just watching my own world collapse. I was watching his family live inside the same lie mine had been trapped in. I should have felt victorious, maybe even relieved. Proof of everything. Hard, undeniable evidence of what Ainsley had become. But instead, all I felt was hollow. A deep, echoing kind of sadness that no confrontation would ever really fix. I'd spent weeks fantasizing about the moment I'd finally throw it all in her face. But now I just felt tired. Like I'd been running a race I didn't sign up for. But I wasn't done. Because now, this wasn't just about me anymore. If Elias had a family, a daughter, a wife who thought the world was fine, I couldn't sit back and let this stay a secret. I couldn't let Ainsley go on smiling through her rehearsed lies while another person like me sat at home wondering why her husband suddenly smelled like someone else's perfume. So I made a choice. A dangerous one. I picked up my phone and texted her. "How long have you been sleeping with a married man?" No response. Not at first. But when she saw the message and the 3 dots started to blink, I knew the avalanche had finally started. And there was no stopping it now. Ainsley didn't reply to my text for 5 hours. Not a single word. I know because I checked. Every 20 minutes or so, I opened the thread again just to stare at the delivered stamp beneath the message. I imagined her seeing it, freezing up like she had that night with the margarita, maybe pacing the kitchen while trying to come up with something clever. But clever wouldn't cut it anymore. She wasn't dealing with the same man she'd been fooling for months. That man was gone. When she finally did respond, it wasn't with denial. It wasn't with anger. It wasn't even with an apology. All she said was, "Where did you get that?" That was it. 5 words. No emotion, no acknowledgement, no attempt to soften the blow. Just panic wrapped in curiosity. She wasn't sorry. She was worried. I didn't respond. I wanted her to sit in it for a while, to twist in the silence like I had twisted in the truck outside cabin 7B. Let her stew. Let her imagine what I knew, what I'd seen, how far I might be willing to go. And while she spiraled in her own private mess, I opened up my laptop and typed 6 simple words into Facebook's search bar. Ray Varnell, Maple Hollow, Illinois. Her profile popped up instantly. Bright smile. Blonde hair. Little girl on her hip in almost every other photo. Ray looked like the kind of woman who hosted book clubs and baked cookies for school fundraisers. Her captions were full of phrases like, "grateful for the little things," and "God's timing is perfect." And here I was, a stranger, sitting in the dark, about to rip her whole life apart. I stared at the message box for 10 minutes. My fingers hovered, then backed off. Part of me felt like I was crossing a line, that I wasn't just exposing the affair, I was detonating a family. But another part of me, the part that had been lied to and laughed at, whispered that this wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. She deserved to know. She deserved to choose how to respond. Just like I had. So I typed, "Hi Ray, I know you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about your husband, Elias. Please don't block me. This isn't a scam, and I'm not trying to hurt you. But something's been happening that I believe you have a right to know about. I can prove it." I read it 3 times. Then hit send. And suddenly, everything felt terrifyingly real. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. I thought it was her. But it was Ainsley. This time she called. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Then she tried again. And again. By the 3rd time, she sent another text. "You don't understand what you're doing. Please call me. I'm begging you, Darwin." Begging. That word stuck in my throat like a splinter. She hadn't begged when she lied. She hadn't begged when she gaslit me, when she shut the door in my face, when she wore another man's scent into my bed. But now that the mirror was turned back on her, now she was desperate. I didn't reply. Instead, I got into the truck and started driving. Not anywhere in particular, just driving. The kind of aimless motion that keeps you from collapsing. I watched the trees blur by and imagined how it was all unraveling behind me. Ainsley pacing, texting Elias freaking out, Ray reading my message, the ground cracking open beneath all of them. But none of that prepared me for what came next. At exactly 11:42 p.m., I got a reply on Facebook. From Ray. It was short, almost too calm. I had a feeling. Please call me. Now. No questions. No confusion. Just confirmation. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. The phone rang once. Twice. Then her voice came through the line, quiet but unwavering. Tell me everything. And I did. I told her about the cabin. About the coffee mugs. About the porch, the blanket, the license plate. I told her about the company party, the Zoom calls, the fake retreats. I gave her the dates, the receipts, the screenshots. I gave her my pain, laid bare and ugly, because she already knew the flavor of betrayal and didn't flinch. When I finally stopped talking, there was silence on the other end. I heard her breathing. Steady. Measured. Then she said something I'll never forget. You're not the first person he's done this to, but you might be the last. I didn't ask what she meant. I was too stunned, too numb. But her voice, the way it sharpened at the end, made it clear this wasn't over. Not for her. Not for me. We hung up 5 minutes later. No goodbyes. Just an understanding. And when I checked my phone again, I had 23 unread messages from Ainsley. The last one just said, "Please. I'm scared." She should be. The next morning was still and blue, the kind of morning where the world feels strangely paused, like even time is waiting to see what you'll do next. I hadn't responded to Ainsley's last text. I didn't need to. Her panic had spoken loud enough. And truthfully, after the call with Ray, I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt emptied out. The kind of empty that comes after the storm, when everything is wet and broken but still standing. I spent the morning packing. Not dramatically, not with rage. Just neatly, deliberately, like someone closing a chapter without rereading it. Ainsley was at work or pretending to be. I didn't care which. I folded the clothes I still cared about, took my toolbox from the garage, unplugged the charger from my side of the bed, and loaded it all into the back of the truck. I didn't leave a note. She didn't deserve one. Instead, I left her the key on the kitchen counter. I placed it next to the small potted plant she always forgot to water, the one I'd kept alive for the past 2 years out of pure stubbornness. I gave it a final glance. It looked better than ever. Then I locked the door behind me and walked away. No drama. No slamming. Just finality. For 2 weeks, I stayed at a roadside motel off the edge of town. Not the nicest place, but quiet. I spent the days working, the evenings walking, and the nights writing everything down. Not for revenge, not for internet clout, not even for closure. Just to remind myself that it happened. That I wasn't crazy. That I didn't imagine the distance, or the silence, or the taste of someone else on her mouth. Ray messaged me once, a few days after I moved out. She didn't go into detail. Just said she was handling things on her end and thanked me for not staying silent. Said something about giving each other back our time. I like that phrasing. That's what it felt like. A time exchange. We gave our years to the wrong people, but we got our futures back in return. And as for Ainsley, she called twice. Left voicemails. I didn't listen to them. Her number is blocked now. So is Elias's. I didn't want to hear excuses or apologies or the desperate sound of a woman who only learned to cry once she got caught. I don't hate her. I don't even wish her pain. Honestly, I hope she finds whatever it was she kept looking for outside of us. Maybe someday, when she tells the story, she'll leave out the worst parts and pretend it just didn't work out. That's fine. Let her. She can bury the truth if she wants. But I won't. Because I lived it. I survived it. And I came out the other side quieter, yes, but stronger too. I learned that peace doesn't always come from forgiveness. Sometimes it comes from walking away without the need to explain. A month later, I found a small rental with a front porch and a view of trees instead of neighbors. There's a coffee shop down the road where the barista remembers my name. I brought the plant with me. It's still alive. Thriving, actually. And last week, while I was walking through the park with a dog I definitely wasn't planning to adopt, a little gray mutt with crooked ears and too much energy, I saw a woman sitting on a bench, laughing at something in a book. She looked up, we made eye contact, and she smiled. Nothing happened. No love at first sight. No cinematic rush. Just a moment. A peaceful, honest, quiet moment. And that, more than anything else, is how I knew I was finally free.